pyruvate, or it'll go up the other way back into glucose and be released into the bloodstream, which can create a hyperglycemic environment. Hi, welcome back to Paying Attention. This is DeLon. Today I'm going to cover some of the adverse effects or after effects of, or while you're currently on it, of human growth hormone and or shorthand HGH. And so HGH is released by your pituitary anterior hypothalamus axis, and is triggered by your growth regulating hormone from your hypothalamus. But you can acquire growth hormone recombinant, and it's almost bioidentical. I talked about that in another video of mine that I'll pin up at the top. But growth hormone is great for lipolysis, which is breakdown of fat. It's also good for adrenergic activity and anabolism, and it also inhibits insulin, which is good because then your body doesn't store as much fat in theory, but you still have to watch your carbohydrate intake because it's a double-edged sword as far as insulin goes, which is kind of what I am at the crossroads of doing right now with my glucometer and blood pressure monitor cup from the increase in red blood cells from the steroids that I'm using in conjunction with my HGH. And so the reason being that you have to watch out for glucose is not because when you're on an HGH cycle, it's not because you're diabetic, but it's mainly because of the insulin resistance buildup from the inhibition of the insulin receptors in the cells. So if those insulin ligands that are secreted from your pancreas can't bind to the cells and signal P13K or PI3K and ACT signaling, then those transcriptomes or secondary signals can't tell the cell to phosphorylate or glycogen synthase or glycogen phosphorylase. And so what happens is you get a hyperglycemic effect. So the cells have too much glucose in them and they can't get rid of them via the traditional pathways, because somatic cells other than your hepatic cells are deficient of glucose 6-phosphate and phosphatase. So once that glucose enters the cell, unless it is oxidized in the TCA cycle or it is converted into lactate and then redoxed back into your liver into glucose, it is pretty much stuck there because it can't be converted back to glucose and then released into the bloodstream for hepatic conversion or metabolism. And so that was a common issue I was running into, or I have been running into, is because of that lack of glucose being able to synthesize and phosphorylate out of the cell into glycogen. It ends up just turning into a gluconeogenic factor to where 2 to 3 hours after my workout, I'll start getting, and this is anecdotal, but I'll start getting hypoglycemic, if that makes sense. My blood sugar will actually be lower than I need it to be. And this is basically just because either convert into pyruvate, which is a redox for glycolysis that can enter into the mitochondria via the TCA cycle and get oxidized via respiration, or it can be in the other aspect of that is the lactate can also exit the cell and then make its way at a lower concentration. It's about a 5-to-1 ratio of glucose to lactate. And what it does is it basically enters your bloodstream, and then it will be converted through your liver through gluconeogenesis, through glycerin anhydride, to pyruvate, or it'll go up the other way back into glucose and be released into the bloodstream, which can create a hyperglycemic environment, and also with erythropoiesis, or the increase of red blood cells, that'll increase your blood pressure as well. So what I like to do is to I don't want to say combat, but basically to counteract these after effects or unintended consequences, if you will, is I micromanage my carbs. So right here, I got like basically some gluten-free flour that I mix up with some shredded chicken, protein powder, peppers, and then just some sweetener, 0 carb, 0 sugar, and stuff like that. But basically low carb alternatives. Believe it or not, milk has galactose in it, so that is it's called milk sugar. And so what that is basically is like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but like even 0% fat milk has 6 carbs of glucose in it. So if you don't know, carbohydrates are pretty much just glucose broken down as energy molecules or nutrients. And so refined sugars are just going to be pretty much just straight mainlining glucose. That's why you're supposed to watch your how much sugar you eat. But yeah, so almond milk unsweetened tastes great, and I'll just mix it with some protein powder, and then I like carbulose is another like, if you just want to add consistency to it, you know, make it into like a little almost like a soup type of thing, with peppers, kiwis, and some protein. Then that's a great way to do it. You know, I add some oats in there too for fiber and a little bit of extra carbs, and just kind of monitor it. And then that way, 2 to 3 hours after your workout, you're not having to deal with the after effects of the gluconeogenic conversion of that lactate you just generated through fermentation of 2-ATP in your workout versus I don't know, just sitting there and doing nothing. But main line is when you're on HGH, it's going to create some resistance, and so you would have if you do choose to go on HGH, you're gonna have to be mindful of that, and make sure that you don't eat too many carbs. And you can you spread it out too, so that you're not always every day or every workout taking an HGH. That way you don't totally suppress all of your insulin sensitivity, so that you don't end up in a hyperglycemic state to where you're have to constantly, because even if you don't work out, that lactate is the lactate redox is going to continuously be generated by cells into your bloodstream. So if you are in a fasting state, you're going to eventually trigger gluconeogenesis, which is going to start breaking down one, muscle through catabolism, which is not very efficient in the alanine cycle, but two, it's going to spike your insulin, because the glucose in your cells hasn't been synthesized by glycogen synthase, and it can't phosphorylate through glycogen phosphorylase through the insulin signal and secondary signal. So just something to be mindful of. Let me know if you have any questions down below. But yeah, HGH is a great hormone for growth, very adrenergic, very anabolic, one of the best hormones you can take for putting on mass. But it does have some things that you have to be cautious and mindful of, and take, I don't want to say control measures, just be diligent about your process, and you'll put on lots of muscle mass. So this is Delon with Paying Attention, and I'll see you in the next video.